Hello, dear students and esteemed learners. Welcome. Welcome to my course on Sociology of Health. First of all, a big congratulations from me because now you have joined this very important and relevant course on Sociology of Health. I don't know what is your existing background as of now, whether you are a student at the level of the undergraduate course or the postgraduate course, or whether you have opted sociology as a major or as a minor or as an open elective. But let me tell you very frankly, irrespective of the fact that which stream you belong to or what is the level of educational engagement as of now, you'll find this course very relevant because this is very simple course. I've kept the language simple, I've kept the slides simple, I've avoided all jargons, and you may know that sociology is an abstract discipline, but I have made it more realistic, talked about the practical issues that we feel, that we talk about, that we see at everyday level, right? So sociology of health definitely going to help you a lot academically as well as in your practical day-to-day life. The application of this discipline in your day-to-day life is going to be tremendous. You will understand about the social policies, you will understand about the structure of the health system, you'll understand the impact of social inequality on the health system. You'll try to understand how the philosophers or the social scientists are looking at the issues related to the social determinants of health, right? We are not only talking about the medical aspect related to health, but we are talking about the social factors, the cultural factors related to health, like food, nutrition, sanitation, etc. So, all these things you will find very interesting, and we have organized the lectures on the basis of certain specific major themes. So every week you will talk about we will talk about one specific theme, and that theme will be divided in 4 5 important topics that we will discuss every week, right? And for your engagement with the course, I have added few activity questions, so try to answer those activity questions. And I have also given list of relevant readings or references that you will find interesting and you can explore further if you are interested in those things. So, welcome again. I hope and I'm very sure you'll find this very interesting. Just be with me, try to understand the concepts, and at any level, if you are unable to understand any of those things, then feel free to interact with me or our team. So, thank you very much for joining this course. Now, let us proceed to the lecture of this week. So, this is lecture 1, and the topic of this lecture is Sociology of Health, an introduction. And the larger theme for this week is Sociology of Health, introduction and basic concepts. So, in this week's courses, we'll talk about sociology of health, its introduction, its relationship with the institutions and the processes which are generally identified in the domain of health. And then we will also talk about some of the important concepts related to that. So, all these things we will discuss in the various lectures in this week. But now we are going to understand sociology of health. In this lecture, I have divided the contents into 5 different subsections. Sociology, what does it study? Then emergence of sociology, a very quick review. Then where is sociology of health located as a subdiscipline? Then what do we study in sociology of health, and why do we need to study sociology of health? All these things we will try to cover in this lecture, of course, very briefly. Now, the students of sociology are already familiar with what is sociology, but if you have not read this subject before, then these 2 3 slides are for you. Very quickly, we will try to understand that sociology is a social science, and like all other social sciences, it studies human society. Now, all social sciences basically focus on some specific aspect of society. Economics basically talks about the economy, or political science talks about the polity or the political system, and just like that, all other social sciences talk about some specific area or domain. And if we look at it from this perspective, then it would be very interesting to know that what does sociology primarily talk about or study. And to answer this question, uh, different authors and different sociologists have given different answers. For some, sociology is a study of social facts, like Durkheim, or for Weber, sociology is basically an effort to make an interpretative understanding of social action. And Johnson says that sociology is a study of social groups, or McIver and Page says that sociology is a study of social relationship. So there can be good number of definitions and approaches to understand sociology, but these are basically the textbook things that we define this way or that way. It doesn't give you the kind of understanding that you need to have when you try to look at sociology as an approach, right? So for this practical utility, I was trying to find out some relevant definition or understanding, and I got that in the very famous book written by Harlambus and Holborn. And the name of the book is Themes and Perspective, Sociology, Themes and Perspective. This is a very celebrated book. And in this book, basically, the authors say that sociology is one of a number of social sciences that attempt to explain and understand the behavior of human beings in society. So, for these people, sociology is one of a number of social sciences that attempt to explain and understand the behavior of human beings in society. You see, I have highlighted components of this statement. First component is one of a number of social sciences that we understand. Then attempt to explain and understand. Now, this is a very important component basically. Sociology is primarily an effort to explain and understand. This explanation is very important because in society there are so many things which are happening, and one situation is different from another situation. So, how do we look at those things? How do we try to understand those things? Sociology gives you an approach to explain and understand those things. And then comes the third part, that is behavior of human beings in society, right? So, behavior of human beings in society is something that we are familiar with. We have been talking about that. But we generally ignore the most important part, which is an attempt to explain and understand, because that actually deals with the kind of methods which would be required to explain and understand. So, sociology has its own methodology. We know the names of important sociologists like Auguste Comte or Emile Durkheim or Max Weber, and for that matter, Talcott Parsons also. Now, these eminent sociologists have tried to provide a specific methodology based on certain philosophy and then certain methods. So, when we say that sociology as a discipline is an attempt to explain and understand the behavior of human beings, that means there is one specific approach, one scientific approach to understand the human behavior and human relations. And that is what sociology is actually talking about. Then sociology broadly focuses on the study of behavior of human beings and human relations in different social situations, because society is having multiple social contexts, and every context could be defined through a specific set of situations. So the situations are different, the contexts are different, and every situation or context is influenced by certain factors. Those factors are also different. Now, let me give you an example of the factors, and that will help you to understand what we are talking about. Religion, economy, polity, technology, or for that matter, ethnicity, race, or family, class, caste, gender. We know all these terms. Now, all these factors basically influence the way the things are happening in any specific social situation or context. That means these factors influence the social behavior and the social relations. So, how do these factors influence, or what kind of impact they create, or how do social situations come into existence on the basis of these various factors? Now, that is something that sociology is trying to understand, right? So, sociology is trying to understand and explain the things which basically take place in the form of certain situations, and which are getting guided by good number of the social determinants or the sociological factors. So this is how we can understand sociology. Now, emergence of sociology basically took place in 19th century Europe, and it was strongly influenced by the French Revolution, then the Industrial Revolution, and also the Scientific Revolution, which took place during the Renaissance period. And the students of sociology are basically familiar with these things, and if you have never studied sociology before, then you can try to understand the contribution of this French Revolution or Industrial Revolution or Scientific Revolution in this regard. There are three other intellectual trends also which have created impact in the growth of sociology, and these are the philosophy of history, the growth of the philosophy of history, then the growth of the biological theories of evolution. Of course, you remember Darwin and then Spencer, and the survey of the social conditions, the kind of social conditions which were prevailing in Europe at that point of time, and the way we got informed about those things through certain surveys, right? So all these factors have created a situation in which sociology emerged as a discipline in 19th century, right? Then there are founding fathers. Auguste Comte basically coined the term sociology in 1838, and he is also considered as father of sociology. Auguste Comte was a French philosopher, and he formulated the doctrine of positivism. Positivism is basically related to a theoretical understanding of growth of scientific temperament, right? And then Emile Durkheim and Max Weber basically are also considered the founding fathers of sociology. They have made major contributions. They talked about specific methodology in sociology, and this is how sociology emerged as an independent discipline. Then, before Weber and Durkheim, we had Karl Marx also, and we got several volumes contributed by Marx in the decades of 1850s and 60s, which basically played a very important role in giving direction to the kind of political philosophy which were existing in Europe at that point of time. And then a good number of followers of Marx basically tried to interpret the Marxian writings in the changing context. Then in the even after 100 years, that is in the 20th century, and that process is still going on. So we have good number of Marxist thinkers, and then there are critics of Marx, and then this basically perspective is emerging and growing. So 19th century primarily witnessed all these important contributors, and then sociology expanded. So this much of understanding is basically about sociology. Then we come to sociology of health. So why do we need to talk about, or why do we have a separate branch of sociology, which is known as sociology of health? This question may come to your mind as of now. And to answer this question, let me tell you that, as we stated earlier, that uh, the social relations get guided by specific situations and context. So very often what happens that in that specific context, a subculture is coming into existence. A subculture in the form of a specific belief system, then certain practices, then certain norms and values, and then some sort of new substructure. All those things basically come into existence, centered around that particular specific context. For example, polity, or for that matter, economy, or for that matter, rural or urban, or education or occupation. So, when a new subculture is developing within the larger culture, then we have a new branch of sociology, a separate branch of sociology, which is trying to address those issues, right? So, on the basis of this understanding, we can say that we have branches like economic sociology, or political sociology, or sociology of religion, sociology of occupation, etc. So, just like that, with the emergence of good number of systems of medicine, then the healthcare system, and then emergence of the notions of illness, sickness, and treatment and medicine, and then becoming with the increasing realization that that disease is actually a larger social phenomenon, a new subculture centered around the notions of health, illness, sickness, and medicine emerged in the 20th century. And the growth of the modern health institutions and then public health, all these things facilitated the growth of this particular area. And so, responding to that, a new branch emerged, which was initially identified as medical sociology or sociology of medicine, and gradually it became sociology of health. Now, sometimes it is also referred as sociology of health and medicine, or sociology of health and illness, or few other names also. But we will talk about those things when we will deal with this particular thing separately, right? So this is how sociology of health actually came into existence, and I have mentioned some of the point in the slides also, so you can have a look on these slides, and these things will become further clear to you. Now, I have included few viewpoints which were expressed by the sociologists or people who were interested in this particular area of research. In the words of Thomas, the recognition of the complex relationship between social factors and the level of health and disease of various groups has resulted in the growth of sociology of health and illness as a separate branch of sociology. So, here again, I have highlighted three components. One, the complex relationship between social factors and the level of health and disease. That means there is a kind of complex relationship between the level of health and disease and the social factors, right? That means social factors are not necessarily always producing the same kind of health or disease related outcome. One social factor may not necessarily always produce same kind of health or illness related outcome. That means sometimes it may create X type of outcome, and sometimes it may create Y type of outcome, depending upon the influence of the other social factors also there, right? So this is what is making it little complex. However, what is even more important over here is this, that we are talking about the various groups. So basically, when we talk about sociology of health or medical sociology, then we are not focusing on the health outcome of the specific individuals. Rather, we are talking about the health outcome of various groups. So sociology of health is an attempt to understand the health and illness related issues at the level of the groups. Now you may ask this question that what do we mean by groups here? So it can be any type of group. For example, it can be a group based on gender. That means the males as a group and females as a group. Or it can be basically based on age, right? So the children or adolescent or elderly, or this group can be based on the race or the caste or ethnicity or nationality or regional anything, right? That means we talk about the health of a specific group, and this group may vary from context to context, situation to situation, and because of that the culture will vary, the belief system will vary, the norms, values, and practices will vary, right? So that way, sociology of health helps us to understand the health, illness, disease, and medicine related things at the level of the groups. Then, in the words of Nettleton, the sociology of health and illness is not confined to the narrow domain of the formal institutions of medicine. It is concerned with all those aspects of contemporary social life which impinge upon well being throughout the life course. So, it is not necessarily the study of the medical system only. It's not that, just that. It goes beyond that. It takes into consideration all aspects related to health, illness, and care. Of course, medical and traditional, modern, so many things. Nettleton prefers the phrase sociology of health over any other nomenclature like sociology of medicine or medical sociology for this branch of sociology. Then, where is sociology of health located? We are talking about this particular thing. Now, health basically is referring to wellness, and the concept of health is actually becoming broader and broader. 100 years before, we had very narrow understanding about health, but now we are having a very broader understanding, right? The World Health Organization already talked about multiple dimensions related to health: the physical, mental, social, and also the spiritual, and there is need of, or there is a demand of, including the emotional. We'll talk about these dimensions or the comprehensive definition when we will talk about the concepts related to health and illness. But as of now, we can understand that the concept of health in itself is expanding, it's dynamic. And we can also say here that sociology of health is different from community medicine or community health or public health, or for that matter social medicine also. Very often we make use of these terms. Let me tell you very briefly here that social medicine or community health or community medicine, basically these are primarily related with the biomedical approaches, right? So, although initially these got influenced by the social determinants of health, but primarily as of now, these find their association with the biomedical approach, whereas sociology of health is primarily a social science. Public health is a meeting point between the medical sciences and the social sciences. So, public health is having is like a platform where convergence is taking from multiple disciplines, or you can say that that is following the interdisciplinary approach. So, this much of understanding is very necessary at this level. What do we study in sociology of health? So, we need to talk about the subject matter. Already we have talked about so many important things. So let us have few viewpoints so that we can comprehend the understanding which we have developed till now. According to White, sociologists are not trying to tell health practitioners how to do their job, though some of these findings can tell us interesting thing about how medicine and nursing are practiced. Basically, White is saying that sociology of health is not prescribing a kind of how to do this or how to not to do this. Only concern is this, that they develop some kind of comprehensive understanding about some of the issues related to health and medicine, and the medical sciences can get benefited by that. Another important thing is this: the focus is not on the individual but on the group, something that we already talked about at length. And then to see the ways in which we label and treat illness as a form of social control. Now, we will get into this debate that how do biomedical sciences basically look at the conditions related to illness and sickness. There are good number of things basically involved in this. This is not as simple as often it may appear to some of us. When we will look at the things from the perspective given by Marxists or from the Foucauldian perspective, then we will try to understand that how complex the issues related to illness and sickness could be. Then, according to Larkin, sociology of health is concerned with all aspects of contemporary life that talks about well-being throughout the life course. Now, this is very important because health and well-being is not related to only one specific component that you may identify as medical aspect of health. It's related to everything: what you eat, how do you live, what kind of physical activity you are involved in, what kind of job basically you are doing, what how do you take care of your mental and social health related things. All these things, everything which is included in our normal life course is basically having some kind of impact on health, and sociology of health is having that kind of broader approach to understand the things. Then Turner suggests the level of analysis approach for understanding health and illness sociologically. And according to Turner, we can have the individual level approach, which will examine the perceptions of health and illness existing at the level of the individual. Or we can have a social level approach, which examines the social creation of disease and the related categories, and just like that the healthcare organizations. Now, social creation of disease is a very important concept, and it says that the disease is actually creation, the creation of the social conditions, not only the medical or the biomedical or the biological conditions, but also the social conditions, right? So we'll talk about these things. And then the societal level, which will examine healthcare system within their political context. And the third level identified by Turner is the societal level. And when we come and look at the things at the societal level, then all different components of the society basically come into picture. So whether that is the economy or that is the polity or that is culture or different other things, right? Because institutions come into existence as a result of the interface of all these institutions. Now, family, marriage, kinship, and all other institutions basically interact and then create these specific institutions or processes that we study. So sociology of health primarily help us to understand all these things, because sociology is having that approach to take care of all these different components which play a very important role in the creation or the construction of these systems or mechanisms. Now, subject matter of sociology of health could be identified on the basis of so many things which are happening around us in the society. We can identify some of these components. We have already talked about some of these, and we will try to count some of these because time will not allow me to explain all these factors, right? But we'll talk about these things like social and cultural determinants, right? Now, there are good number of social determinants basically, like food, nutrition, water, sanitation, housing, education, income, work, and then social inclusiveness or social participation. All these socio-cultural factors or determinants play a very important role in the determination of health and illness related conditions. And sociology of health basically is an attempt to study all these things. Then the socio-cultural and politico-economic practices and institutions. Now, practices are different, right? Very often we have some kind of prevalence of some kind of practice in the society, which may not be considered very good in terms of the social morality, but still those are prevailing and these have impact. Just like that, there are institutions and new institutions come into existence, and then on the basis of those practices and institutions, basically certain determinants come into existence, right? So all these things are happening. Then we study good number of indicators like fertility, fecundity, morbidity, mortality, etc. We'll talk about all these indicators at length in one of the forthcoming lecture. Then there are specific theoretical perspective. In sociology, we have the functional perspective, Marxist perspective, Foucauldian perspective, right? We need to understand all these perspectives because they are presenting different viewpoints on the issues related to health and illness. Then, of course, there are processes like medicalization and demedicalization, or there are existence of multiple systems of medicine, which is also identified as the notion of medical pluralism. So we study all these things in sociology of health. A few other things that I have mentioned in the slide: public health, basically, or health policy, then the differential outcome or the impact of social inequality on health, and the coming into existence of health inequality. Now, this is a very important point: coming into existence of health inequalities. This is a new form of inequality, and we'll focus a lot on this particular aspect in this course, right? So, there are so many things that we need to talk about. Along with these things, we also talk about the health and illness or disease among a specific age group or gender, for that matter, the reproductive health or maternity health or occupational health. These are also very important things, right? So, with this, we come to the last section of this lecture. Why do we need to study sociology of health? And by now, I think the answer is already obvious to you, that how these things are important. And then I would like to add two, three important things here: that health is now a human right. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights made a breakthrough in 1948 when it stated that everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and her family. That means health is a basic human right. World Health Organization has already stated that the highest attainable standard of health is basically a need for each and every individual. The Alma Ata Declaration of World Health Organization and UNICEF in the year 1978 talked about health for all. Then the Millennium Development Goals at the turn of the millennium talked about the health related goals, and primarily focused on 8 specific goals. Or the Sustainable Development Goals adopted in 2015 and applicable up to 2030 talked about the health related goals. That means in the contemporary world, there are so many things happening around the idea of health and well-being. The approach of development basically is increasingly becoming the human development approach. Now the Human Development Index has developed, that has included health as a component of development, and increasingly we are having the IHDI also, the demand for IHDI, that is the Inequality Adjusted Human Development Index. That means several things are happening in the domain of health and development and well-being, and sociology of health is basically an approach which has developed as a response of all these things, and that intends to study all these things comprehensively, so that we get enough information all these on these things, so that we can develop the appropriate promotive health related programs or the preventive health related program, or so that we can help in mitigating the impact of the communicable disease, what happened during COVID also. Or for that matter, we can identify the inequalities inherent in the various social domains, and then try to mitigate the impact of the inequality on health related issues. So all these things basically we try to understand in sociology of health. All these things become subject matter of sociology of health, and all these things basically signify the importance of sociology of health, right? One last thing which I have mentioned, I need to talk about that the cost of medical care is also increasingly very very harsh and adverse impact is basically created because of the high cost of medical care, right? It is causing impoverishment. People are becoming poor because of that. And to respond to that, the concept of universal health coverage basically emerged, right? So we need to look at that to what extent the notion of universal health coverage is basically getting implemented in the countries or in India, and to what extent the burden of out of pocket health expenditure is getting reduced. So we can talk about all these things when we talk about what do we study in sociology of health, or why do we study sociology of health. So I hope that by now you got good idea about introduction of sociology of health. Now here I have added a think about this problem and an activity question also. So just have a look on this, think about this problem. How can this course on sociology of health help you in increasing your awareness about the various health issues of people living around you? So you have developed some idea about the contents of this course. Now think about this problem. And then one activity question, try to understand what people generally mean by health. So different people have different understanding about health. Just ask some people around you that what do they understand by health, and you will get to know a very important or a very new perspective on that. So after doing this, think about this, an activity question. Here is a list of references and recommended readings. I have used multiple references in the previous slides, so you can find the details over here. And then there are some of the recommended readings also. So if you find any of these readings interesting or available to you, then do have a look on these things. So with this, we close this lecture, and we will meet in the next lecture. And till then, take care. Have a great day.